What's good, people? Well, I'll tell you who's not good. Diddy. In addition to a video being released of him wearing a bathrobe looking like a fool chasing his girlfriend, beating her up, both of his mansions in Los Angeles and Miami were raided by the Department of Homeland Security. Well, what do we know for certain? Why were his homes raided, and what were they looking for? Join me, and let's do a legal deep dive into the criminal investigation into Diddy. Well, it was a very shocking visual to see armored federal vehicles rolling up to Diddy's mansions in Los Angeles and Miami, and seeing his staff and groundskeepers in handcuffs on the ground in front of the properties. Now, they released very little information, but what we do know for absolute certainty is this was a result of an ongoing federal investigation for which they obtained search warrants for both properties. Now, in order to get these search warrants, law enforcement has to go in front of a magistrate judge and basically lay out the information and evidence they have to indicate there's probably evidence of a crime inside those properties. And based on that, ask the judge to allow them to search the properties. If the judge agrees, he signs a document giving them authority to do so. Basically, once they get that document, that's called the search warrant. They can go to the property, they can secure the location, conduct a search, and take possession of anything they think might be evidence of a crime. In my opinion, the fact that they searched both mansions at the exact same time in two different states is indicative of a long-term, well-thought investigation. And the reason they probably searched both places at the same time is, once they search the first residence, he's going to be tipped off. And that gives him the opportunity to have evidence destroyed, get rid of evidence, and things like that, things they may be looking for they need to prosecute him. Now, Homeland Security has not released any details about their investigation, but we do know that Diddy has been the subject of lawsuits by men and women accusing him of sex trafficking. It is likely the criminal investigation is based on those lawsuits. We saw similar investigations once there were lawsuits involving R. Kelly and more recently Vince McMahon with the WWE. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that these lawsuits are what put Diddy on the federal authorities' radar. Now, obviously celebrities get sued all the time. Every case doesn't always have merit. Sometimes they're just not justified, they're not true. However, when you have situations whereby a celebrity or anybody is being accused of and sued for sex trafficking by multiple individuals, that's going to get you on the federal authorities' radar. At that point, what they're going to do is start contacting the witnesses and seeing whether or not the allegations are credible, whether or not it's an isolated incident or some ongoing pattern of conduct that's going to justify investigation into further criminal activity. Now, when federal authorities are interviewing these witnesses, they've got to be very thorough. Like I said, celebrities get sued all the time. And sometimes the person suing the celebrity, they're looking for 15 minutes of fame, they're looking for a payday, and they're gonna have baggage. Drug history, criminal convictions, in and out of rehab, So sometimes they're not the best witnesses. So what the federal authorities are gonna be looking for is what I call corroboration to their statements. And when I say corroboration, you never want your case being based solely on the testimony of a witness that has credibility problems or people that have baggage. So what they're looking for is other evidence, other witnesses that back that witness up. Oftentimes you'll find witnesses that give similar versions. They may not even know the witness that you interviewed or the person that's claiming to be a victim. They'll give testimony that describes similar conduct, similar patterns, sometimes at different locations. They'll describe, evidence that exists, things that are consistent with what that witness has indicated and said in their statements. And the more of those witnesses you find, the better. And sometimes you'll find witnesses that, they don't claim to be victims. They'll talk about their conduct and their role, and they'll implicate themselves in criminal activity and say, yeah, I did drugs with him and I was a willing participant. You'll find individuals that were not even involved in the criminal activity, but hey, maybe it was a housekeeper that saw that particular, witness or person claiming to be a victim at the residence, engaged in an activity, or the limo driver who says, yeah, I would pick these girls up. I don't know what they're, being used for, but hey, he would have me pick them up from this place and I'd bring them back, and this is kind of what we did. Those types of witnesses and those types of statements corroborate the complaining witness, and that's what the federal authority is going to be looking for. And they might also describe organizational structure. Again, who was the driver, who was the housekeeper, who provided the drugs. They might have information on the telephones, text messages, photos, little videos, things like that. Those things are what is going to make all the difference in the case against Diddy. Now, since both properties were searched, it is likely that the witnesses described very specific physical evidence of sex trafficking that could be found in the homes. I'm thinking things such as video recording equipment, hard drives where videos got downloaded, drugs, prescription drugs, harder drugs like cocaine and things like that, and maybe even other things that are just used in just prolific sexual activity when you have men and women engaged in conduct like that on an ongoing basis. Well, now that the feds have interviewed their witnesses, executed their search warrants, and gathered all their evidence, what's going to be next for Diddy? What's going to happen next? I'm going to tell you about that in part 2. That's it. Well, that's all I got, but I do appreciate you taking the time to join me on this legal deep dive. I think it's always fun to discuss these topics, tell you what I think, and get your feedback. I would really appreciate it if you took the time to like the video, subscribe to the podcast, and also I'd appreciate you sending me your comments so we can discuss the topics you want to hear about. That's it.